Michigan named 6 team captains. Rival fans lose it over one person who wasn't named team captain, not surprisingly, and a whole bunch of other little tiny things that we will discuss on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Thursday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. 6 team captains for the Michigan Wolverines entering the 2023 season. And I think it's basically what you would expect. I mean, it's a lot of veteran leadership on this team. You can't go wrong with any of them. So in case you didn't know, Mikey Sainristil returns for a second straight year as team captain. That one was the most obvious one. He is joined by running back Blake Corum, left guard Trevor Keegan, right guard Zach Zinter. Why do I feel like I'm missing someone on the offensive side? I'm not. Chris Jenkins, the defensive tackle, and linebacker Michael Barrett. So that is your captaincy. And you hope that it goes better than the captaincy from 2022. I mean, the team obviously was in a great place, but you had 2 people who were named team captain who bolted, right? I mean, you understand why on kind of both counts. But at the same time, you don't want your team captain. I say this as completely recognizing that Michigan has 4 guys, was it maybe 5 that were team captains elsewhere and transferred in. But I mean, ideally, those guys are going to be your cheerleaders all year round. Now, Michigan had 1 of 2 of the guys that bolted. Eric All was still very much involved. It just Cade McNamara was never seen again, really, which is disappointing. You would hope that he'd be out there on the sidelines, even if he has to rehab and all of that kind of stuff, but wasn't the case. So you hope that this goes better than last year in that sense. You hope everyone stays healthy. You hope everyone keeps their starting job, because these are pretty much all people you would consider to be starters, although Mike Barrett is the only one that I feel like is in actual danger of not necessarily retaining his role, right? Because Ernest Hausman is that good where he could challenge Mike Barrett. Puppy trying to get into the room with the door closed. That's fun. I think these are all well-deserved, right? And these are all upperclassmen, all seniors. We'll get some more about that momentarily. But considering the fact that, you have so many guys that you could look at and say, that's a guy who's been around for a while, that's a guy who could be a leader, I think that they still picked the right ones. The other candidates would be the wide receiver duo of Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson. These are guys who have talked about being more vocal leaders. You look at Braden McGregor finally stepping into his own. I mean, he's a senior. Jalen Harrell, who's a guy that I feel like every early press conference we have, every important game, you get Jalen Harrell. So he's at least someone who speaks for the team in a lot of ways. You look at Makari Page. Doesn't seem like the most vocal guy from what I can tell, but lets his play on the field do the talking. And certainly there's other guys that you would look at as underclassmen. And we'll obviously talk about J.J. McCarthy not being named a team captain. But, you look at J.J., you look at Donovan Edwards, you look at Rod Moore, you look at some of those guys that were, because it would make sense that a guy like J.J. or a guy like Donovan would be a team captain, because not only are they kind of the face of the team in a lot of ways? I mean, that they're the ones that were going out with Andrell Anthony and practicing after games. And, they were among those who were watching the aftermath of the Orange Bowl, where Georgia was getting its trophy and all of that. They have just as much to do with some of the shift in culture that's happened in Ann Arbor, right? So, I think they got the right ones, though, right? Because Mikey Sainristil, I think, is probably the singular behind-the-scenes face of this team. He's the one who I feel has the most to do with, and I know like Cade McNamara was among those as well, that said, hey, no more. I feel like it was Mikey Sainristil, Josh Ross, Cade McNamara going into 2021 and said, we're not playing the game that we just played. We're not doing the season like we just did. And when it comes to like the leadership council, Mikey Sainristil's name was always the one that was brought up constantly. So it makes sense that it would be him. And it would make sense that Blake Corum is known for just this relentless work ethic. So it would make sense that it would be Blake Corum, you know? It makes sense that obviously he's not only a guy who's first in, last out, he does it on the field as well. Oh, he doesn't have the capability of being that Hassan Haskins guy, turn 1 yard into 3 yards. Guess what? He added it last year because of the relentless work ethic. So it makes sense that it would be him. Chris Jenkins, who earned the Enthusiasm Unknown to Mankind Award that Jim Harbaugh created this offseason. He gave it to multiple people, but it was Chris Jenkins that got it. Also makes sense. Guys that lead by example. Zach Zinter, Trevor Keegan, also really, really dang good at their jobs. And Mikey Barrett, Mikey. I see. This is why I don't like. I liked it being Mike Sainristil because now I'm going to call people Mikey. I did this at the Wolverine Boot Company shoot as well. I was like Mikey, and trying to talk to Mike Barrett because it's just too much. I can't keep two people with their names spelled correctly but with different pronunciations or spelt the same with their names. You know what I'm saying? It's too hot out today. Anyhow, I mean, a guy who has been asked of him. Comes aboard as a quarterback from Valdosta Lowndes. They say, we're going to switch you over to the defensive side. Starts getting a little bit of run there, mostly special teams, kind of biding his time. He's a safety, right? He's more of that type of player. Then they switch him to Viper. He's the heir apparent to Kalik Hudson. Starts off great, kind of falls off as the rest of the team does for the rest of the season. Don Brown let go. Suddenly he's a man without position. Asked after Michigan State in 2021 to come back in and be a linebacker to try to help Michigan's woes when it comes to substitutions and having someone that can play linebacker, play the run, but yet be in coverage. Does an admirable job, but doesn't really cement himself until last year, latter half of the year, really starting with that Rutgers game with the 2 interceptions, the pick 6 and all of that. And then suddenly off to the races and suddenly one of Michigan's best players. He and Mikey, one of the things that they talked about, both of them today, was about their sideline speech to the team during the Ohio State game. Things were still in question, but Michigan was pulling ahead and they recognized, look at how Ohio State's sideline is acting. They look defeated. So instead of just patting themselves on the back and saying, maybe if we can continue doing what we're doing. No. As leaders, they stepped up and said, now is the time that we really attack. And they got in the ears of their teammates and made it happen. That is exactly what you want to hear from your leader. So all in all, I'm very pleased with the selection. 6 is a little bit bigger. I believe they had 5 last year. It always varies on a year to year. How many they end up having, but voted on by their teammates. There's no highest honor. Congratulations to them. It's very cool. But obviously, like I mentioned, JJ McCarthy not included in that list. Let's get to him in a moment because some rival fans predictably all up in arms. I'm going to talk directly to them. I'm going to give you the ammunition to combat back because some ridiculousness over there. Before we do move on, if you want to get into the comfort kingdom, then guess what? I've got just the thing for you. Bird Dogs is revolutionizing comfort when it comes to your pants and your shorts and even your polo shirts. I mean, again, Anthony Broom from On3 wearing the nice Bird Dogs polo shirt. Looks like the most comfortable thing I've ever seen. Wore that to the press conference today. So whether you're looking for something dressy, you can go from the gym to the lake. You can go from there to your press conference, anything in between to the office. Bird Dogs has got you covered. You'll look and you'll feel better wearing Bird Dogs. They allow you the versatility of going from the beach to the golf course. Yeah, I'm just giving you a million different examples here. Right to dinner or your next meeting. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton because Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing a cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it stretches so you get that way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. You can get down low just like Dennis from It's Always Sunny. Bird Dogs also uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege or use the promo code LockedOnCollege to get your free Yeti-style tumbler. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege or promo code LockedOnCollege for the free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We can promise you that. All right, so unsurprisingly, there are some people very upset with the fact that J.J. McCarthy, Michigan's starting quarterback, entering his second year as a starter, third year with the program, wasn't named a team captain. If you want to know who those people are, I mean, they called them Spartans for some reason. Very upset about it. There is a reason why they're upset, and it's because of there were questions back in, I think it was 2015, about Connor Cook not being named a team captain and as a senior, and Michigan fans were calling into a certain show on 97.1 and saying, like, what kind of leader is he? He's not that great of a leader, and, he wasn't even voted by his teammates as team captain. So every time a Michigan quarterback isn't named team captain after that, there's a bunch of people that empathize with the group in East Lansing that get all up in arms. They are aghast. They are taken aback. They are verklempt. All of the things. I'm trying to remember. The verklempt thing is from that was that old SNL with Mike Myers. I can't remember the skit. But that's what they are. They're all of those. So, but here's the thing. As they try to make this into an ordeal the same way that the Connor Cook thing was, which, I mean, if it was Michigan fans calling in about that, and it was kind of ended up being a weird self-imposed error for down the road. Not that anyone with any kind of sense of logic or just well-being would ever look at it that way. But you know how this rivalry goes. It's all vitriol all the time. One little problem, as Zach Zinter revealed, because he was asked, like, did you talk to JJ about not being a team captain? What did he have to say about it? And he said, well, he understood it because he wasn't on the ballot. He wasn't eligible. Because this year, only the seniors, the fifth years, and the sixth years were eligible. And that makes sense, because to kind of go back into it, like, I started mentioning players that could be named team captain. I'm not even mentioning all the transfers. And you might be asking, like, why would a transfer get it? Well, Oluwatimi was an alternate captain that became a full-time team captain. So when you look, I mean, Drake Nugent, Ladarius Henderson, AJ Barner, Jack Tuttle, Josh Wallace, all team captains at their previous schools. Most of them have been around for a while. They might not have gotten to play. Not many of them. Jack Tuttle did in the spring game. AJ Barner did. The others didn't. Ladarius Henderson and Drake Nugent were around. Josh Wallace came aboard late. But there were plenty of options. I mean, every single one I just mentioned is a guy who was a team captain at their former school and is an upperclassman and is a senior. All of that stuff. So yeah, it's disappointing in some ways that your quarterback is the team captain, but at the same time, if Jim Harbaugh making the rules as he does every year, and that's been a rule from time to time. They've had that before. I believe in 2018 it was seniors only, if memory serves, and then in 2019 it became open to any of the players. But I think it just depends on how much senior leadership you have, because ideally, yeah, you would make that available. And it gives someone like Mike Barrett the opportunity to be a team captain, whereas maybe if you open up to everyone, then JJ probably does get it. And then Mike Barrett, who's really sacrificed and put in his time, more time than anybody. I mean, he was around when Fritz Chrysler was the coach, right? He wouldn't have this opportunity, and now he gets an honor of a lifetime. And no matter how his career goes from here, 30 years from now, he's going to be back in Ann Arbor, and he'll be able to say with honor, like, yeah, I was a team captain for this group. What's more, I can't remember if it was Trevor Keegan or if it was Zach Zinter that said, listen, we've got 120 team captains, right? Like, in essentially 120 leaders. Trevor Keegan that said it. It's like, we got 120 leaders. Every single person that came in here is a natural leader. That's the type of guy that Jim Harbaugh wants in this program. just because you aren't named team captain, you don't get that honor, you're not walking out in the coin toss, doesn't mean that you're any less of a leader on this team. Other teams need a little bit more direction. I mean, 2020 Michigan needed direction that didn't have. 2019 Michigan needed direction that it didn't have. This team is the last one in the Jim Harbaugh era that I would say, yeah, they need some guidance. They need some players to help, that are going to step up and hold each other accountable. I don't think that's going to be happening, right? If a wide receiver is dropping every pass that comes his way, he's going to get a talking to. It's not just going to be like, all right, everyone go to your corners. Like, I don't want to talk to him because I just don't feel like that's my place. That's not how this team works. And what's interesting is Mikey Sanders still talking about learning everyone's personalities and how they accept instruction the best in order to be able to best help players grow. That's real leadership. Tailor-made, hyper-stylized understanding of what each guy needs in order to thrive in this program. Not by the coaches, but by their teammates. So, is it a bad thing JJ McCarthy is not a team captain? No, not at all. Guess what? He's still a leader. He's still going to be one of the faces of this team. He's still going to be the guy in all the highlights. And he's got a maturity. Unlike maybe some others, he's a more vocal leader than probably any other quarterback that has come through Ann Arbor, except for maybe Cade McNamara. And he's gonna do everything he can to push this team forward. I'm sure he'll still get questions about it, and I'm sure that there are certain people out there that want to make it a whole ordeal. I haven't looked at I do sometimes go and look at the Spartan message boards just out of morbid curiosity because they just live in a complete alternate universe. And sometimes it's like you get in the mood to where you want to doom scroll. I get like that every now and again. Go to RCMB every now and again. I'm not going to lie. It's entertainment. That's why I call that fan base, and I call them Mac from Always Sunny. And we're making all kinds of Always Sunny references on this show because they're just constantly like, yeah, we're just going to go out there. We're going to do a quick backflip, do a little karate kick, and then bam, threat neutralized. And everyone's like, you can't do a backflip. As a matter of fact, like when you went out on the field and you prat fell. Had a pratfall, right? I don't know if you can use that in the past tense or not. Yeah. Because on some of those boards, I don't believe it's RCMB. This is something I read on the Wolverine that the Spartan Mag, some of them are predicting 12-0 for MSU, which is just know where you're at, man. Anyway, that was my pushback for that. Let's get to a bunch of the other little things that happened. Gonna keep it nice and brief. But there were a bunch of other things that I just want to cover. We'll do that here in a moment. All right, I know you all know that my plans for the podcast almost never go as expected, but yesterday I didn't get in to sit down and actually do any work for writing or podcast until like 11 p.m., which is why there was no podcast yesterday. I took that opportunity to write instead of podcast. But with that said, I'm hoping that we can go all weekend because we do have a big game coming up. Next week, I'm hoping to fill with a lot of guests. That is also the hope. I know we've got one lined up for Monday. All goes according to plan. We will reunite with Jake Butt, and then we're just hopefully going to have a bunch of people join us all week. I haven't lined up a lot of them yet, to be honest, but that's the hope and the goal. So just some programming notes there. All right, so let's talk about some of these other things that were discussed today, because there was just a lot that came out of this press conference. I mean, we talked to all six guys, and it wasn't just about the captaincy. We covered the Sainristil and Mike Barrett part at Ohio State and why JJ was a captain. Blake Corum went on a very deep breakdown of the entire running backs room. The only person he didn't mention was Danny Hughes, actually. But I mean, he went down into the other walk-ons, all of that. I think the important thing is Donovan can do whatever he really kind of wants to do. And I had asked him about, he wants to have that Blake shuffle. I said, hey, you made that change going from, year 2 to 3, where everyone was saying you can't do the 1 yard into 3, and then you did it. So what do you see from him? And he's like, listen, he works on it all the time, but he's already got it. He's got that capability, and he's teaching me things about route running. Now, how scary could that be? If Blake Corum can have the hands and become a bona fide receiver as well, I mean, all possibilities for this team are absolutely endless in my eyes. Like, I feel like without the championships, I feel like we're talking the way the guys on Locked On Bulldogs probably were talking about Georgia in a lot of ways of just like, where does it end? I mean, except for there's a little bit more hope involved for Michigan than there was Georgia coming off of a national championship. But man, everything feels pretty good. Let's see here. DJ Waller got a couple things that he was, couple mentions as being a guy who's really standing out. Mike Sanders still calls him a freak, says he's a freak athlete because he's got size and speed that most don't have, right? You've got Chris Jenkins, who he himself is a freak and said like the strength really, he thought he was strong when he arrived in college. Turns out that he wasn't strong as he thought he was and he had to work some things out. And now he's can do that Turkish get up. He can do different drills and things faster than anyone else. And he's called the mutant. He's called the freak. He's called all these things. And yet he says, was it Mason Graham? I think he said can run faster than him. They've got a lot of talent here. Drake Nugent. Oh, no, it was Drake Nugent that runs faster than him. That's what it was. That he can outrun him. He's got a strength and speed combination that's surprising, is what Chris Jenkins said. So that is exciting in and of itself. Amarian Walker is still kind of a work in progress. Mike Sanders still says likes where he's at in a lot of ways, but still just needs to be in the playbook. And you have to keep in mind he hasn't been around football nearly as long as Sanders still was. So he's still a work in progress. Josh Wallace, Mike Sanders still had no Mikey. Had no doubt that he could come in and do what he's doing. That he is full. That they were texting before he can't, even committed to Michigan, and then Wallace tells him, "Hey, I planned on coming to Michigan." As it was, Blake Corum feels like he is in the perfect space to be able to go out there. He's just excited to get out there another time. Another season at Michigan, because he didn't think that was going to be the case. He thought going out there against Illinois, he thought that was his last game at the Big House before the game even started. So now he's just got tons of anticipation. And then the last thing I'm going to leave you with is the Jim Harbaugh suspension. None of them seem bothered by it whatsoever, but they do feel like this is galvanizing them, and they recognize, like, I guess they're just finding different ways to put chips on their shoulders, right? And I think that that's what you need when you're in this position, so that you get through the season. Don't think you're too good. Go in with a humble heart. All of that. So I'm excited to see how it works out. That's all for today. We will be back on Friday, hopefully Saturday, on Sunday, and then throughout the week. At least next week, we will start to be able to have a planned time on each day, because we'll know exactly what our press conferences and all of that are. So that will be the plan. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back soon. Peace.